Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Victor. I appreciate this opportunity to say a few words. I am honored to be here. I think I've been in office now for 97 days, and there's a lot that's been going on in the last 97 days that I wish I had more time. I have not been able to figure out how to get more hours out of a day, but we get quite a bit out. I want to acknowledge some people that are here with me today. Paulette Shirk. Paulette has been involved with actually from day one in our campaign. She's a tribal relations advisor. She's my advisor. She works directly for me, and she's at my side on these very critical issues. Craig Fleener in the back. Craig Fleener is our Craig is a cabinet level position on Arctic policy. And Craig works directly for me and sits on my other side during discussions of critical importance to our state. Melissa Stepovich, I don't know where Mrs. Stepovich here is. She runs our office here in Fairbanks, and I've got an incredible team. Let me just start by talking a little bit about who is not here, Byron Malott. Byron is in Boston today. I was to be in Boston, and I just said, I can't be out of the state. I'd like to come to Fairbanks instead of Boston. And in typical Byron Malott fashion, he said, Governor, if that's helped you, I'll do that. And that's what he does. That's the kind of person he is. He's the kind of person that, I don't know if anybody of you were here during the AFN convention in Fairbanks a couple years ago when he was invited on stage the last night to come up and actually to sing a song. If a certain amount of money was raised. On his way up, he came by my table and he said, I'd be honored if you would join me. And we were running against each other. You just don't do that in politics, I guess. Neither of us were much in politics. But that's what he's about. He's about people. It's about unity. It's about getting together. It's about working together. This past AFN convention, the slogan was standing as one. And then that's what we've done. That's what Byron and I have done. That's what Craig Fleener and I have done. That's what Paulette and I have done. We're standing as one. And so I working together, unity. I mean, these aren't just words. I mean, this is a dream. It's a journey, and I'm just honored to be part of this journey. There's we've had our retreat recently, and our directors and commissioners all came together at our house in Juneau and spent a day and a half, and we put together a team specifically on tribal relations. That's one of our main goals, is to develop and work on tribal relations, but not just talk about it, not just study it. My whole saying during the campaign is I will dismiss study hall, and I have dismissed study hall. I don't want to study stuff anymore. I want to do some stuff. And the way you start doing some stuff, you stop studying stuff and start doing some stuff. So that's what we're doing. We're doing some stuff, and I think we're making a difference. But we want to have a relationship where we are. I think it came from Paulette. When we talk about consultation, we want consultation, but we want to go beyond consultation. We want cooperation. So as we put together our working group, we're gonna have a consultation with the tribes before we come out and say, here's what we're going to do. We want to have that consultation before we decide what we're going to do. So when we do, we know we're doing something that makes sense. And we can't sit on our side of the table and say, here's what we think is best for you. We need to sit at a round table, all of us at the table. I mean, there's a saying that's not very good, but it's an old saying that says, if you're not at the table, you're on the table. I think you got to be at the table. So that's what we want to do. We want to have a round table with the right people at the table to talk about these issues. We have a number of issues that could divide us, that have divided us. But we're not going to let that continue. We're going to take each one of those, we're going to put those issues on the table, and we're going to discuss them. It'll be uncomfortable. There'll be some risk involved. But if you don't talk about it, you're not going to get anything accomplished. We had a transition process. Early in our transition, before we were sworn in, I guess it was in Anchorage, and we brought 250 Alaskans together. We whittled it down from 10,000 Alaskans we'd like to have brought together. We brought it down to 250 Alaskans together to talk about specific issues. And, one of the things we talked about was whether or not we were going to let the public be involved. And we said, yes, we'll let the public be involved. The next question, we'd let the media be involved. We said, yes, to let the media be involved, because we want the public to know that we're working together. And the real reward for me was when someone said, after that two-day weekend at the University of Alaska campus, that they made more progress on the issue of subsistence in those 2 days than they had for the last 20 years, because we were talking about it. We had different sides of the issue. It was not a comfortable conversation, but it went on for 2 days. You got to start with a conversation. You don't start with a lawsuit. You start with a conversation. So I'm excited about what we've been able to do in the last 91 days. I'm disappointed that we haven't done more. I'm disappointed that I can't stand here and say this is resolved, this is resolved, I can't do that. I can't do that in 91 days. I wish I could. I'm being told about processes, and I'm getting a bit frustrated with processes right now because I want results. I come from a building background. I was born here in Fairbanks. My dad was a builder. I'd much rather pound nails, and then I ended up going to law school, became a lawyer, but I describe myself as I'm a carpenter with a law degree, and now I'm the governor. And that's sort of the order of progression in my life. So I'm still a carpenter, and I still like to build things. I want to build a future in this state. Medicaid expansion. Val Davidson. Does anybody know Val Davidson? Wow. What she said, yeah, please. The other day I was in a meeting with Val, and she made reference, she said, when we interviewed each other for this position, and that's what we did. She interviewed me as much as I interviewed her, because she had to make sure I was the right person, and we were supposed to have 10 minutes to interview all these different candidates. We spent 2 hours talking to each other. It was what a wonderful individual. She's been working night and day on Medicaid expansion. We need your help on Medicaid expansion. Medicaid expansion helps 40,000 Alaskans have health care coverage. It's not a political issue. It's a nonpartisan issue. I'm so proud that Byron and I can stand up and say, we're nonpartisan. We're just a couple of lifelong Alaskans that want to do what's best for Alaska. We don't care about a party. We care about the people of Alaska. So Val Davidson needs our help. And we're going to we're going to come out with a bill this week, which we will introduce on Medicaid expansion that we're going to need some help on. So when we do that, we're going to reach out and ask for support, those that can support us. We're going to run it like a campaign to get this thing done in about 40 days, because that's about all the time we have left in the session. So it'll be a pretty aggressive effort. It's the right thing to do. It's anytime we can bring in 100% federally funded health care for 40,000 Alaskans, there's no reason not to do that. So that's what we're going to do. Other states have done that. We should have done that in the past. We're going to do it now. And it's all about Alaskans helping Alaskans. When times get tough, and we are in tough times, we don't forget who we are. We don't leave Alaskans behind. So I appreciate your help on that when we get to that point. And like I say, this week we'll be submitting a bill on that. There's lots of pieces of litigation out there, unfortunately, that I inherited, all of which came into being prior to me getting here, which is I'm not using that as an excuse. It just takes me a while to catch up on some of this stuff to make sure that we do the right thing in this litigation. I'm not a fan of litigation at all, even though I'm a lawyer. Litigation is the last thing you reach for. I typically reach for a cup of coffee first, sit down, have a discussion, have a conversation, have another conversation. So I will be very reluctant on reaching for litigation, because that's really the last straw for me, and I'm not in favor of that. Untangling that which is already there is a bit complicated, but doesn't mean it can't be done. It doesn't mean it shouldn't be done. And I'm looking at each and every one with a fresh look. With a look of, I wouldn't have gotten into this to begin with, but how do we get out of it? How do we resolve it in such a way that we can learn from it, and we can begin the healing process, which sometimes it takes a healing process with some of this litigation. It's very unpleasant. It's very it shouldn't have happened to begin with. How do I clean up some of the situations that I have found upon being governor. So, and I'm certainly willing to discuss those to the degree I can. Because it's litigation, I have to be careful about what I say, but I don't have to be careful about what I do. And I've been working hard on some of this litigation to come up to speed on it, reading the briefs, reading all the facts, reading all the, so I understand, you know, so I make a decision, I make it as an informed decision. So, you know, there may be some questions on that. I'm happy to take whatever question when we get to that point. You know, I know that there's subsistence is a significant issue. It's a high priority. You know, last week I received a video from Paulette on the history of tribes in Alaska. I certainly wasn't here when Judge Wickersham signed the agreement before my time, but I certainly appreciated the quality of what went into that and the message that's there. I'm going to distribute it and get more copies and make sure that all my commissioners view that video as well. Very, very well done. Talking about the history of, you know, sometimes people think we know all about Alaska because maybe we were born here or we've been here 20 years or 30 years. Generations, you know, we need to, you know, we need to understand from you know, generations and generations, 1,000 years ago. So that's what I want my administration to understand. You know, one advantage I have of being a nonpartisan, I didn't have to go and select commissioners all out of one particular team. They're not on a team; they're on the Alaskan team, and so I get a fair amount of criticism because I don't have enough Republicans, or don't have enough Democrats, or I don't have this or that. So you know what? You know what they all are? They're all Alaskans, and that's what I like about it. And when somebody looked at my cabinet one time and said, "Well, what are you people?" I said, "We're Alaskans. It's you know, it's okay to work together, and that's what we're doing. And so that's why I'm honored to be able to be here today to talk to you and let you know that, you know, we are on this journey together, and it's not going to happen, you know, overnight. You know, I liken it. I'm from Valdez. I lived in Valdez for 30 years, and you know, it's like turning a tanker. You know, it takes 5 miles to turn an oil tanker. You know, and I'm trying to turn a state. I feel like I'm with a skiff at the bow, just kind of poking the bow of the state, trying to get it to move a bit. And but we're getting it to move. It's gradual. We're gonna get there. But you also have to know where you're going. You know, coming from as a builder, I need a set of blueprints. You know, I've told the whole purpose of our retreat was I need a set of blueprints. You know, I've never dug a hole in the ground and then go, now what am I going to build? Before I take that first scoop out with the excavator, I know what I'm going to build. And that's what I'm putting together now, and that's what we want your help on, is the blueprint of Alaska's future. You know, we need to have a vision in this state, and the vision is not the price of oil. You know, and like I always say, when I was born in Fairbanks, the price of oil was $0. That's before oil. So we've come up $50 rather than come down $50. So we don't have to be completely focused on the price of oil. It does impact how much money we have. We have half as much money as we did before you know, for various programs, okay? So now what are we going to do? You know, my biggest frustration is the cost of energy in this state. We are the most energy-rich state in the nation with the highest cost of energy in the nation. There's something wrong with that, and that's our fault. You know, it's up to us to fix that. I had the opportunity to meet with President Obama 5 days after I was sworn in, and I told him that. He said, that makes no sense at all. I said, you're right, Mr. President, it makes no sense at all. We have got to get the cost of energy down in Alaska. We can't have the haves and the have-nots. Right now we have the haves and the have-nots. Those that have cheap energy and those that do not. And we need to level that playing field. We need to have some equality in the state when it comes to energy costs. And again, we are the most resource-rich state. We don't have an energy problem. We have a distribution problem. We need to get the energy distributed to rural Alaska. We need to find out if there are other energy opportunities. Recently, I was in Kotzebue, and I spent some time at the Baker home. And we talked about, wouldn't it be a shame if areas of Alaska sitting on pockets of natural gas, yet we're bringing in diesel fuel? Why don't we just drill a well and find out if there's natural gas there? Not enough natural gas, perhaps, for, you know, in Exxon, BP, or ConocoPhillips. But look at the Narrow field in Beryl and all the years that they've been able to draw upon that gas field. So let's make sure that our resources are developed, as the Constitution says, for the maximum benefit of Alaskans. And that's what we're going to do. Very passionate about local hire. You know, I've always said I'd much rather have, people on the North Slope, commuting from Minto rather than Mississippi. Right now, we have a lot of people from Mississippi that commute back and forth to the North Slope for those jobs, And the way we do that is we train our young people. We make sure that career and technical education is available in the mainstream education process. You shouldn't have to go off to some other technical school someplace. That should be part of our mainstream education. And I fought pretty hard in this last few weeks when they took that out of the budget on the career and technical education. It was going to close a school in Kotzebue, Kotzebue, Nome, and Dillingham. I said, no, we're going the wrong way. We should be opening up more schools in more regional areas of the state rather than closing them on career and technical education. Those are good paying jobs. It's a great opportunity for young people. And so we need to do more of that. There's no reason we should not be exporting our jobs and exporting our money out of Alaska. So especially at this time, at no time should we do that. So, there's things that we can do, but we can do it better when we're working together. And we're not expending our time and efforts at odds on issues. So, my goal is to continue the journey that we started actually right here in Fairbanks in some respects, of bringing Alaskans together and working together and talking about co-management of lands. There's no reason we can't have co-management of lands in Alaska. Talking about subsistence, how do we address the subsistence issues so that for generational issues, and those are big issues and important issues to this state. And because we have not been willing to address them, we've allowed them to divide us. And so sometimes it's always, it's easy to point fingers at the federal government, but sometimes it's us. Sometimes we ourselves need to take care of our own issues as well as not just point to the federal government. So, that's been a goal that I have set in my administration, and we are carrying that out on a daily basis. And so every decision we make, we always, how is it going to affect all Alaskans, not just a group of Alaskans that maybe already have a healthy economy or already have cheap energy. How are we going to impact the rest of Alaska? So we are the inclusive administration. We tend to go out and ask for input, and I'm one that says I don't know. I guarantee you I don't know all the answers, but I know where to find them. And I find them at conferences like this. I find them at AFN. I find them at an oil and gas conference. I find them, as long as it's within Alaska, I'll find I don't think the answer is outside of Alaska. I'm not a big fan of that necessarily. But I think the answers are in Alaska, and we're going to address that. Fish and game management is a big issue. I'm going to reappoint Orville Huntington on the Board of Fish. I've heard lots of input about Orville. Is he here? I've not actually met Orville Huntington, but if he's here at some point, I'd like to maybe meet him. But I've heard a lot of good things about him, and I'm going to. It's an easy decision for me. The people on the Board of Fish and on North Pacific Fisheries Management Council, those are big decisions and big issues. But Orville will remain, and so I want to hopefully say hello to him before I leave this building, if he's here. I am so proud of not just proud of the honor of being the governor of this great state, but I'm so proud of the team we've put together, and I want you to be proud of them as well. At some point, I'd like to have I wish I could travel with my whole team. The trouble, if I did that, we wouldn't get much work done, so we don't do it that way. But I wish I could. I wish I could introduce you to each one and tell you why that person is in that position that they're in. Many of the people that are commissioners didn't apply. They didn't apply to be commissioners. I went to them, and I'm a hunter, not a shopper. And so I went hunting for these individuals, and I went and I said I want you to be part of this commission, or this journey we're on, and they all said yes, they would. And so I tapped a lot of people on the shoulder that some I had to tap a couple of times, but they did. They all said yes, we'll join this journey with you. And so. I am honored to be here. I look forward to be able to come back another time. I'm not just a show up at a one-time event and you don't see me for 4 years. I hope to be able to come back again. I hope that I come back and Byron is here at the same time. That would be most enjoyable to do it that way. And I'm also anxious over the years to get to other parts of Alaska, what I call the real Alaska, areas the villages that you might be from. Craig Fleener has promised me a trip to Fort Yukon and some time on the river, so I'm going to hold him to that. As the legislative session gets out in the middle of April, we'll have a chance to sort of catch our breath a bit and then get out to the part of Alaska that we really want to go to. So I will hopefully see you in your villages and spend time there listening. And in the meantime, our Paulette is my liaison, and she's my eyes and ears on issues that I otherwise wouldn't be aware of. So I want to thank you very much for this opportunity to say a few words today, and I'll certainly stand for questions if there's questions. Yes.
Hello? Can you hear me, Governor?
Just fine, thank you.
Yes, congratulations. My name is P.J. Simon, Executive Board Member to Yukon Tanana Sub-Region, also on the Doyon Board of Directors. Welcome to Fairbanks.
Thank you.
My interest today is in the Pittman Roberts Fund in raising fees for non-resident hunters in sport fishermen through the Dingell-Johnson Act of 1950s and the Pittman Roberts Fund of 1937. When you look at our resources today, we look at the numbers and look at recent legislations proposed by legislators in Juneau. They're putting the pressure on our people for raising hunting license and fees. Yet you look at 15,000 non-resident hunters come to Alaska, and they only pay $85 for a non-resident hunting fee. If we raise that up to $1,000. A lot of these people are well-to-do, with all due respect to whatever that they do. But running the numbers, last year we had 15,896 non-resident hunters. They paid a total of $1,351,160. If we raise that to $1,000 for hunting tag as a non-resident, will make $15,896,000. So the state would make a profit of $14,544,844. So we can't put the pressure on our people for the management of the state. That's all of our resources. We depend on that, especially when a time of budget shortfalls of $3.5 billion. So I urge you, Governor Walker, to take a look at this Pittman Roberts Fund, the Dingell-Johnson Fund for fishing. It's a 3-to-1 federal formula that funds state dollars. If we raise and make the non-residents pay, they do it in the other states. Bighorn sheep, $20,000. Here we have guided sheep hunts, $20,000, yet they only pay $425 for one tag. 750 sheep was taken in recent numbers. Other numbers, 8,000 moose on an annual basis got harvested, 22,000 caribou, 1,500 brown bears, 2,300 black bears, 750 Dall sheep, 12,000 deer. That's a lot of resources that we could tack on to the non-residents. We can't let our people pay for the management. And last, in closing, on education. Don't cut education in the rural areas. The worth of an uneducated population only has value to those that seek to exploit us. Thank you very much, Governor Walker.
Thank you. Again, wait a minute. Can I have your notes? Can I have your notes? I wasn't able to take that. Can I have what you're reading off of? The reason I want those is that we just had thank you. We just had a little bit of a contest and asked people to, thank you, to submit ideas about cost savings and fundraising, and this was one of the ones that somebody submitted, not nearly as well as you did. And I think the big prize was lunch with Byron and myself, and so we're going to select 5 people to do that, and we got several of these, the same kind of comments about And some of them came from the big game hunting side as well, saying, basically exactly what you've said, not as eloquently as you've said. So we need to look at all options, and now is the time of looking how we do business, how we've done business, and some of those fees have not been raised in 20 years. They're the same as they were 20 years ago. So I think you make a good point. We'll definitely look at that. Thank you very much for, Governor Hickel, who was a big mentor of mine, he had a rule in his hotel. It's called the 3-minute rule. And anybody could come into his office as the owner of the Captain Cook Hotel, the person opening the front door, the person pouring coffee in the restaurant, whoever it was, they had 3 minutes. The first minute and a half could be the problem, but you had to have the solution the next minute and a half. So I appreciate what you've done. You brought a problem, you brought a solution. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We'll look into that.
Thank you, Governor Walker.
Okay, this is just a little bit reminder before we go into more questions and answers. We're going to be tight on time. I ask you to introduce yourself, the tribe you're representing, and also to keep your questions short and brief.
Good morning, Governor.
Good
My
morning.
name is Steve Guinness. I'm from Fort Yukon. I currently reside in Fairbanks. And I want to thank you for being here. And I also want to thank you also for appointing some Alaska Native people to your cabinet. One thing I wanted to speak to you about, Governor, was that, being a tribal leader for many years and having to deal with the state government, the Department of Law, the State Department of Law, has been very good about kicking the can down the road. And there's some of these cases I certainly believe as a governor you can put a total stop to. One is the whole issue of the land and trust. As I understand it, that's another issue that's kind of being kicked along the way, having to request some sort of a congressional compromise on that issue. And this is something that has a major impact on the tribes. And to ask for a congressional compromise or consulting with other entities is not the appropriate course of action in my view. The appropriate course of action for you would be to consult with these leaders that's sitting right here. And all tribes. The other one that's kind of being kicked down the way is having to do with Indian child welfare cases. We in our communities, we know our people. And I think we're in better position than any other entity to deal with that issue. However, every time a tribe takes a step to protect their children, there's some kind of intervention taking place from the state government. That's got to stop, Governor. You've got to work with us to allow us to deal with those issues. And the final one I want to speak to is another one that's being kicked down the road. It's having to do with the Fairbanks 4. And I'm sure, Governor, you've heard about that case. And I think the majority of us here in the interior, as well as the Alaska Federation of Natives, recognize that there's definitely some issues here in this case. And yet, there's delay after delay after delay. When it's pretty evident to us through what information we understand that these 4 young men are innocent. So, as you've pledged, Governor, I would certainly hope that you stand by your statement that I want to work with you folks. I want to work with your tribes. Here's some opportunities where you can demonstrate to us that you're really willing to work with us and not some kind of a slogan. And I'm not saying that that's what you're saying, but you already have said you inherited some of this stuff, and I understand that. But you also, I believe that you're in a position to take action regarding some of these issues. So I thank you so much for being here with us.
And I thank you for your question very much.
And Governor, this young lady behind me has been very active in the Fairbanks 4, and if you don't mind, I'd like to ask her to just say a few words. Thank you.
Fine. Thank you very much.
Hey, Mr. Governor. When you referred to the real Alaska, I think that we all know what you're talking about, but I just want to comment that sometimes, particularly with issues of justice, we're made to feel like that's the other Alaska, separate, and not equal. And I think that I just want to keep my question simple, which is simply, what do you intend to do about the Fairbanks 4 case? We've waited many years for someone to answer that question, and I think there's a lot of hope in this room that you're the governor who will.
I have to be careful because it is a case. It is an open piece of litigation. And so I have looked into that. I have met with the Attorney General a couple of times on that, as recently as this last week, to talk about what's the appropriate role to do a, quite honestly, I wanted to look and have an independent investigation on that whole process, because I was not comfortable with what I saw as well. What it appears that if I do that, that is actually what's going on right now in the process with the judge and the case in the trial that's coming up as an independent investigation. And it appeared that if I did what I wanted to do, I would slow down the process there right now. My goal is not to slow anything down. My goal is to accelerate anything that's there. I have learned also that I can jump in the front of something and say, let's start this over again, and it'll take more. It'll just derail what's on the docket right now. So that's set for trial this year in October for that independent investigation, and the judge will have much more powers than I will to be able to delve into issues that I don't have the ability to delve into. So I'm not comfortable with so it's hard for me to step away from that, because that's something that I looked into a bit some time ago. There's a process that's ongoing right now, and if there wasn't, I'd do more. My hands are a little bit tied, because the more I do, the more that process that's in place right now will slow down, is what I've been advised, and that certainly appears to be the case. I don't look at things one time and step away and say, well, I did my, I stay involved in it on an ongoing basis to see what the status of it, to see if there's something's been derailed or something has slowed down, then I will get involved. But it's tough to stand here and not say exactly what and I have to remain as the governor of the state. But what's right's right, what's wrong's wrong, and we need, and there's a process in play right now to get to the bottom of that.
Thank you for watching it, and please just keep an eye. It's been a very long 18 years.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Governor.
Good morning.
My name is Michael Stickman. All my friends call me Mickey. I'm the first chief of the Navajo tribe. Have been the chief out there for about 14 years now. When you and the Lieutenant Governor first teamed up and you had your fundraiser here in Fairbanks, me and the chief over there, Leo Lognuts, one of our longtime chiefs, we went to your fundraiser, and we went there with the idea of looking for a way of checking to see if they were going to have a tribal state consultation once you became governor, because, well, we were pretty sure that your chances of winning were really, really good. So that's why we went there to your fundraiser, because that's what we do as Indians and as people that live out in rural villages. We spend our time getting ready for the future. So we went to your fundraiser, and your running mate, Byron Manotti, talked about tribal state consultation, and participation and collaboration. So I was really glad for that. But the other thing that I was really glad for was to hear you say that you want it. And that's the opening door for us folks, you know. So I hope you guys all heard the governor say that the door is open for us, you know, because when people speak to you, you know, you got to make sure you hear the message. And I heard the governor say the door is open, you know, and he pointed out key people like Craig Fleener, you know, somebody I have a lot of respect for. And I want to thank you for sending Craig to the Arctic Council meeting in Whitehorse. You know, it was the first time that I actually saw someone from the state, from the governor's office at Arctic Council meeting and talking to the indigenous participants there at the Arctic Council and asking us what the state can do for us at that international table. So I want to say thank you for that. But I wouldn't be a real leader if I didn't listen to my people. So I have a specific question from one of my tribal members.
Okay.
As governor, will you support an Alaskan constitutional amendment which will provide for a rural preference priority for subsistence harvest of fish and game? And my last one, Governor, is I want to thank you for your confirmation of Orville Huntington. He's been a good friend for a long time, and he's the right person for that position. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for that question. I just had to comment a little bit more on Craig Fleener since you brought him up. You know, when Byron and I joined our campaign, it required, Craig and I had been on the campaign trail for almost a year at that point, and it required Craig to step away and say, you know, I won't run for lieutenant governor, I'll let Byron run in my position, and but all he said was, you make sure you win. He never put his hand out and said, I want this job, I want that, I want this. He never said that at all. He said, you just win and do what's best for Alaska. So, you know, it's just been an honor to work with him, and to have him in the position he is on the Arctic Policy Council is a great step for Alaska. Not a step for me, it's a great step for Alaska. So thank you very much for acknowledging him. And thank you, Craig. We need to address the subsistence issue. I know we've talked about whether it's going to, an amendment of our Constitution. We need to sit down and figure out what is. I support resolving that issue. What it takes to resolve that issue, we have to resolve that issue because it's divided us for far too long. So if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. If there are other ways of doing it, there are other ways we do it. But we need to resolve that issue. But we're not going to resolve it in a courtroom. We're going to resolve it in a conference room. And I hope you're in the conference room, or a representative of your tribe is in the conference room, because that's how we're going to resolve this issue. So talking about it for far too long, let's do something about it. Thank you.
My name is Jasmine Olson. If the first chief of Caltech will recognize me as a youth, I have an important question for the governor.
Oh yeah, my name is John Madros. I'm, excuse me, I'm the chief and delegate from Caltech, and I'd like to convene you to recognize Jasmine. She's my niece, and she's also the granddaughter of the late Chief Franklin Madros Sr.
As a youth that was within the state foster care system, I hope you will make it a priority to ensure an Indian Welfare Act compliance. What will you do to ensure this?
Well, I'll do a lot to encourage it, and thank you for the question. It's a good question. It's an appropriate question. I want to make sure that we don't get tangled up in a formality or technical formality when a child's life or a child's future is on the line. I don't want it to be a situation that someone in a rural village has to comply with a certain technicality that you have to have a law firm on your right hand side and a whole computer bank on the left hand side to do it. That doesn't work. We've proven that doesn't work. So what we can do is we can change the regulations. What we can do is we can change the law that basically says that what is the and I don't want to too technical, but what is the definition of a formal adoption proceeding? Is it an expression of interest? As far as I'm concerned, all it takes is an expression of interest. So there's things that we can do and we will do, and that is a high priority for me to make sure that ICWA is followed, is acknowledged, and given preference.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Percy Herbert from Fort Yukon, and I want to talk about the subsistence issue and commercial people. What I like to see is the commercial be limited. See, the commercial people in the ocean are getting all like king salmon. Like a couple of years ago, they caught 25 million. What did they catch, the subsistence people on the river? They didn't catch nothing. They wouldn't even allow them to fish. Fish and Wildlife come up to them and take their net away and put them in jail, you know? And while the commercial people are allowed to catch all the king salmon they want, you know, why don't they let a million go to the river so they wouldn't have no problem? But they don't want it. They want problems, so they take it all. Thanks.
Thank you. Good question. I remember so well 2 years ago at the AFN, I went to a food security a session, and I just sat there and listened. You know, someone came up and said, "Why are you here?" Well, I said, "I want to listen. I want to learn. I want to listen." And a lady stood in line, a grandmother with a little grandson about 3 or 4 years old, for about 45 minutes to get up to talk to Senator Murkowski and Senator Begich. And her message to them was very clear. She said, "It's wrong when I'm on the Yukon River and my grandson is hungry. If I catch a salmon for him, I go to jail. But if I'm in the nicest restaurant in Washington, D.C., I can order a king salmon every night I want without any problem at all." There's something wrong with that system. I'll never forget that. You're right in what you have to say. I'm very concerned about the bycatch issue. I'm very concerned about the you know, as an accident, they catch our fish. They catch your fish. And they don't intend to, but they do. Hundreds of thousands, millions of fish. I just think bycatch is a major issue in resolving some of the you know, the technology of fishing has gotten better over time, and the fish get caught before they get to the mouth of the rivers, whatnot. So I think what I will be focused on is on the bycatch issue, to see what can be done to. You know, there's some discussion about having a bycatch quota. You catch a certain amount of bycatch, you're out. You have to leave the area. I mean, some disincentive for them at this point. I was surprised that when about 8 months ago, I was at a fish processing facility in Unalaska, and I was going through their plant. I said, "Where does the bycatch go?" I said, "Well, it goes to the food bank." I said, "Well, what food bank does it go to?" "Well, in Seattle." I said, "Well, what is that? What good does that do us?" I mean, I don't have any issue with the food bank in Seattle, but I mean, they are our fish, whatnot. So that's a big issue. Over time, we've watched. I mean, the bycatch has reduced some on the Yukon River on the reports I've seen, but it's still. I mean, 22,000. I think it's still way too high as far as the amount of bycatch that's going on. So we need to address that. You're absolutely right, and we will. We have the right people in place. I think Sam Cotton as a fish and game commissioner is a very good commissioner, and we've had a lot of discussions on the bycatch issue. So we'll stay focused on that. Thank you.
If I can. Unfortunately, we got about time for 2 more questions, and that's all we have. And the governor has another meeting he has to get to, so we need to be respectful. So please.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Pitka. I'm the chief of the Village of Beaver. I have a youth delegate here that I need to recognize, but first I need to ask a quick question. I didn't hear anything in your speech about land into trust, and I just need you to know that the Alaskan tribes don't support a congressional compromise for land into trust. It'll jeopardize the tribal ability to address public safety, child protection, and hunting and fishing management. We don't support this because we feel like it's another tool in our toolbox of things that we can do on a local level to help our own problems. Thank you. And I'd like to recognize my youth delegate, Jolie Murray.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like my first chief said, I'm Jolie Murray, and I want to know what steps are being taken to prevent rural schools closing.
Okay, let me answer both. And by the way, I could do this all day. I mean, this is what I actually love this part of it because I learn more. I mean, I've already gotten some notes from somebody. I learn more from this process. So I really enjoy this part. Land into trust. That's an issue that we did. You know, we're guilty of moving it down the road 6 months because I said, you know what, I need to be fully comfortable. It's a big issue to Alaska. It's a big issue to the tribes. It's not uniform across the state as far as even within the tribes of support. So I need to sort that piece of it out as well. We're going to come to a resolution of that, but we're going to come to a resolution of that in our consultation process. And yes, it is a legal process, but boy, if we can resolve it and then dismiss the legal process, that's my first choice. So be just a little bit patient with us on that. I get through this legislative session, maybe a little bit patient. Then we'll get to that. So on education. You know, Byron Malott and I have said, education is the highest priority for us. What we did say in our cutting of the budget, we told our commissioner, we said, don't reach out and pick on rural Alaska. You take 5 jobs out of rural Alaska, it's felt. You take 5 jobs out of, say, Anchorage as an example, it's not felt. So, you know, if we're going to constrict, don't reach out to rural Alaska and try to consolidate into the urban areas. So, and education is a huge issue, and it's hugely important. Boy, it's a challenge. We did cut education 2.5%. It was the smallest cut of all the cuts across the board on education. We felt we had to make some adjustment somehow. And I've had teachers come to me and say, you know, we understand that. We understand that. Our priority is still very high on education. And, you know, I went to school in Delta Junction in Quonset huts that we didn't have climbing walls and all the, you know, paraphernalia that you see now, but we had a darn good education inside those Quonset huts. So we are very aware of the impacts what we're doing is on education. It's not a fun time to be governor in many respects. It must be more fun when there's $150 oil rather than $46 oil. But, you know, I'm glad we are governor, lieutenant governor now because, you know, when you're in financial times, you really have to make sure you know where your priorities are so you don't do the wrong things. And you know, hurting education would be the wrong thing to do. So we're going to do everything we can to not impact education in anything other than a positive way. Okay? Thank you. I'll take it. I'm fine. Okay.
Good morning, Governor. Stephanie Nicolai, the delegate for the Tanana Tribal Council. I'd just like to thank you for making the Tanana Chiefs Conference Convention your priority this week. And I'd also like to recognize Curtis Summer, our chairman.
Good morning, Governor Walker.
Good morning.
You know, it's been quite a while since I've seen an administration that is open to dialogue with the natives here in Alaska, and I'm pretty heartened by it. We heard Fred Alexie from Caltech talk about subsistence this morning, and the fact that big money allows high seas fisheries to go on while we, as natives in the interior, are forced to keep from fishing the healthy food. And it brings to me that big money means conflict of interest, collusion, bribery on part of our politicians to enable high seas fisheries to go on while we are not to fish. And I would like, we have a resolution that calls for commercial fishing to be stopped before subsistence fishing is stopped. But you know, all these laws and regulations coming down from Juneau come from legislators and judges that have no knowledge of the native way of life. And for years now, I've called for a mandatory Alaska Native history curriculum in our school system here in Alaska to at least provide legislators, judges, and the rest of the public figures a basic knowledge of natives here in Alaska and what our rights, what our culture means to us. And I don't know if you had said it this morning, but I would like to see that your team, who is going to be dealing with natives, have at least a once a month consultation meeting with all the Native leaders, at least telephonically or whatever, to catch up on issues and how we can work through our issues. And our water, the Yukon River, Tanana River, you name it, we're under attack from contamination from Canada, who apparently their mining activities is really destroying rivers. And knowing that people are trying to put in mines and in our watersheds, you know, our water is very important to us. We can't drink oil-tainted water, you know, contaminated stuff. We can't eat contaminated food. Our water is very precious to us, and as natives, I don't like to see the state claiming water rights in our traditional country, our traditional lands. We own the water. We cannot survive without the water. If they want to okay permits to open up mining and drilling in our lands and contaminate the water that we drink, the animals that we eat, the fish that we eat, then I feel that everyone in the permitting process, from legislators to the officials to the people asking for the permits, be forced to drink that water every day, just as we do. Anyway, thank you, Governor Walker.
Thank you. And I also want to mention that in February, we sent out a letter to every tribe inviting them to participate and join us. So we have begun that process, but it'll be it's not a one-time, it'll be ongoing. So thank you.